Hello everyone. This is my very first entry for my vlog that I'm going to be doing for the next year from March 2026 to March 2027. And the purpose of this vlog is I want to provide information to people who are in my financial situation, which is significantly less than most people you see on YouTube. And so I felt like this might be useful to someone like me and encouraging to them because if I can do it, they can do it, right? So I started to make this whole long video covering a lot of stuff, and I realized people they don't have time for that. So I'm just going to talk about three areas. I'm going to talk about myself, my location, and what my plans are, or a little bit about public housing, my income and cost of living, and what my plans are for the future. So let me start with myself. My name is Teresa. And I will be 64 when I leave on my trip, which will be in March. So I'll be 64 years old. I am single. Uh, my location is I live in a small town in Tennessee. There's about $16,000. I wish 16,000 people in population. I am retired, but before I retired, I was a visual art teacher at a high school. And before I was a teacher, because I had a second career, I did clerical work, mostly legal secretaries, administrative assistant, things like that. Now, I have to say a little thing about that. In my culture that I was a young person in, um, the wife's income wasn't like a main breadwinner, even like equal, like necessary breadwinner. It was more like, so it was looked on as something not as important. So I didn't have a college degree. I didn't have a career. I did work all my life from the time I was 12 years old, but my income wasn't really high. My highest income actually was a little under $30,000 in that a year, which is when I was a teacher. So all that to say that your Social Security, if you don't already know, is based on two factors: how much money you made through your life, what was your highest income, I think it is, or the average of, and also how long before you retire. The longer you wait, in theory, the more money you get. I don't know if that's worth it or not. That's for you to decide. But anyway, I'm in good health. I am not a sprightly 20-year-old or even a sprightly 50-year-old. I have arthritis and back issues, but other than that, I'm in good health. And the reason why I retired, or not the reason why I retired, but um, my overall desire, the thing I wanted to do in my retirement was to explore my love of the arts, not just visual art, which is what my degree is in, but also writing and music and theater. These are all things that I want to explore, and I want to explore them not just in my own culture, but in other cultures. Now, I've already talked about my location a little bit more. Let me tell you some more. So it's a small town, like I said. Uh, there's no public transportation, which is probably the biggest drawback for me because I do not own a car. Cannot afford to own a car, and you'll see that in a minute. There is a senior bus service. It's like a shuttle service. It's a little wonky, but it works for like going to the laundromat or the grocery store. Um, One of the biggest issues I have is that there's a real mismatch between me and my interests and the people my age in this community. So, from my point of view, unless you're a church-going person, there really isn't any culture um, for someone like me. So I'm just speaking for myself. There's no social life. There's no culture. Of course, if you're a church-going person, you have those things probably. Um, But honestly, most people in this town, it's not even that. It's that they're working so hard just to get by that they don't have time or energy for anything else, for any kind of hobbies or things to do for fun or getting together with friends. Um, I think that's all I have to say about this town. It's a pretty decent little town as far as, Tennessee goes. It's a growing town. It's just not, the big thing for me is the public transportation is probably the biggest thing for me. That I'm isolated and trapped in my home as a result, which I'm a homebody. I like being at home, but um, it's not a fulfilling life. And one of the problems that I'm starting to notice about that is that my health is getting poor because I'm sedentary. I wasn't in the past. Oh, I should mention, because it'll probably come up as I go along, I have lived abroad. I taught English in China at a middle school and an elementary school for about 2 years. And that was when I was in my 54, 55 years old. Okay, so let me just do a little blurb here about public housing, because a lot of people who haven't been in that situation will say, well, just, um, uh, you know, you can't afford the rent in the United States, you can't afford a car, well, just get public housing. I am so sorry um, to let you know that um, public housing is not so clean and simple as you would think. There are long waiting lists. There are waiting lists of 2 years or more, pretty much everywhere. The forms are complicated and the process is complicated and exhausting even. Um, I'll tell you a little bit of my background that relates to that. When I had a point in my life where I was living in the YWCA. It was a program for women who had fallen on hard times and needed a place to live that was low cost. And I paid $400 a month, I think, to live there in a room that, if you imagine a room that's like a deep closet that's about 4 feet wide, about 10 feet long, there's room for a bed and a dresser. The bathroom was down the hall. And from there, and I found a job. I found a clerical job in the city. This was, boy, this is a long story. Anyway, um, and I was teaching English online. So I was I applied for public housing almost right away, and it took almost 2 years for me to finally get into an apartment that was income based. Put that in quotes. And it was affordable. It was like, I think I was paying $500 a month to live in this apartment. And they had a public transportation, so I could take that to my job. Um, I had When I started, I was teaching online, but then I transitioned into an administrative clerical job at the university there. Anyway, so I was there a year. Things were good. And then when it came time to renew my lease, they raised my rent $300. I could never get a straight answer out of them how they could justify that when my actual income hadn't changed that much. Um, but anyway, that $300 jump is what made it so I could no longer afford to live in that apartment. And for a little while, I was living in my car. Okay, now, here's my current income and cost of living. So in that big mix, I ended up fully retiring. So my income was my Social Security and my pension from when I was a teacher. So that works out to $1,257 a month. That's $1,095 from Social Security and $162 from my teacher pension. Um, so what am I spending that money on? So my rent where I live right now is quite an anomaly, because if you don't already know, the average rent for a one-bedroom apartment across the board, like in the United States, is anywhere from $1,000 a month to $1,500 a month. And with my income, you can already tell I can't afford an apartment here. That's why I was living in my car. Um, and so I had a relative who offered to let me rent this apartment temporarily for $450 a month. Okay. That is how I'm able to afford to live in the United States since, well, for about a year, almost a year and a half now. My utilities here in this apartment, this one bedroom apartment, are $150 this month. They're going up and up and up and up. When I first moved here a year and a half ago, my utilities, which I'm talking electric, water, and gas, were $100 or less. But now they're consistently $150 or more. So that I'm almost priced out of utilities. I'm almost to the point where I have to sacrifice certain, food or um, have to not have water or something like that to get by. So that with the 450 rent and 150 utilities, that means that my max amount of money is $600 that's being spent on just having a place to live. My other expense that everyone has is groceries, and groceries is another thing that I'm almost getting priced out of now. My groceries are anywhere from, well, I budget $225 a month. I consistently end up going over budget by at least another $50. So I estimate that on months where I need to get something other than food, like, I don't know, toilet paper, the groceries are anywhere from $225 to $325 a month. And then the rest of the costs that I have, like internet, phone, I have I have a few small credit cards, like under $300, takes up the rest of my money. So all that gloom and doom to move on to what my plan is. So I've been researching this idea of slow travel and or finding permanent residency outside the United States in a more affordable country. I've had to give up the idea of residency for now because most of the countries that I would want to go to, their minimum income requirements are way above what I make, so I don't qualify. So my current plan is to rent Airbnbs for 1 month stretches or more. I'm trying to stay under my current cost for rent and utilities, so I'm trying to stay under $600 a month. Airbnbs include the utilities and the internet, so I'm saving not only the $150 in utilities, but also the $30 internet. Let's see what else I want to tell you about that. Most countries that I've got on my list here, they have a standard visa for U.S. citizens of 90 days, so I can stay up to 3 months. Some have an extension where you can stay up to 6 months. And my goal is to stay as long as possible in each country because the longer I can stay at this lower price, the more extra money I have for what's called an emergency fund. Some people have those. I don't. But I would like to have it. So that is all I have to share here. If your situation is similar to my situation, you might want to subscribe to my vlogs so that you can follow along and what I'm doing and what's working, what's not working. The countries, I promise you that I'm not going to set up any classes or offer any kind of tours or anything like that. I'm not going to try and sell you real estate. This is strictly a vlog for people who have truly low income traveling abroad. Can it be done? So here are the countries that I have set up to go to first. Colombia and Panama. And future plans, I haven't actually purchased tickets to these countries yet, are Guatemala, Mexico, Ecuador, and Paraguay. I probably won't go to Southeast Asia or Europe. I might go to Europe, but not Southeast Asia. I've lived in China. It's hot and humid there. China's a great country to live in, by the way. If you can get a work visa, because you have to have a special visa to live there. As far as cost of living, it's great. The people are great, very safe, but where I lived in Shenzhen, very hot and very humid. I mean, unbearably so for most of the year. So that's why I don't want to go to Southeast Asia. And then in Europe, I might go to Europe, but my main problem with Europe is that I really want to live someplace that's more temperate, that doesn't get really cold or really hot. And so they call them eternal spring cities or Goldilocks zone cities. And most of the European countries I think I can afford, they have really brutal winters, and that's just not for me. All right. So thank you for following me so far. Like I said, if you feel like this might be of value to you, please feel free to subscribe. If you got any value from what I said, please feel free to like. But I will be posting soon about more different topics as I get ready to move, and I'll be sharing that with you. Bye-bye.